Smells like church. Yeah, it smells. Is it really not? I haven't been over since
Like we got it.
fall off. He's a wheelchair. He's good at that good at help.
So it wouldn't support the sidewalk, but they
Harder for him to get here.
stamped over the parking strip. So it's nice.
I'd like to welcome you to our City Council meeting this evening on Tuesday, July 16th, 2019. For the record, all City Council members are present. Also, members of the staff. We welcome the public and those that are with us this night. Our Pledge of Allegiance, I've asked our Community Development Director, Mike Eggett, if he would lead us in the pledge.
Could everybody please stand and repeat the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this point, it's customary that we take a moment of silence. As we take a moment of silence this evening, we would like to remember those who are serving in our military, those that protect the many freedoms of this great nation that we live in. We'd also ask you to remember our police, our firefighters, and those that put themselves in harm's way each and every day in our behalf. We'd also ask you to remember our city council as they make decisions this evening, that they might make appropriate choices and decisions that are in the best interest of our city and our community. This time we'll now take a moment of silence. Thank you very much. Move on next to our public comment period. This is a period of time when you're welcome to come forth to the microphone and make any comments, any suggestions, any ideas you might have, or any concerns that you might have. Bring them forth to the City Council. We would ask you, if you would, when you come forth, to state your name. And we would ask you if you'd keep it to about 3 minutes as far as time. So time is now yours, so you're welcome to come forward to the microphone.
My name is Mike Loughton. My wife and I have been residents here for almost 15 years now. We love this city. For the past 4 years, we have put on the Old Glory Days 5K. We created and put on the Kids K. And my wife created and volunteers and runs the youth track club for the city. So with that being said, we're pretty ingrained in the city, and whether our neighbors like it or not, we're here to stay. And with that being said, I need a favor from the city council. So we are trying to put in a swimming pool in our backyard, and the setback requirement in Riverdale for a pool from the rear of the house is 7 feet. Most other cities in northern Utah, it's 5 feet. We have small lots over in River Glen, and it just doesn't quite work at 7 feet. Roy Cities is 5 feet. Washington Terraces was 7 feet up until 2 years ago when a resident went to put in an in-ground pool and realized it didn't quite fit. He went to the city council and got their setback changed from 7 feet to 5 feet. So I've talked to a few of the city employees about it, trying to figure out why it's 7. Nobody really knows. Some cities just set it at 7. Some cities set it at 5. I haven't heard any pushback on why changing it from 7 to 5 would be an issue. What I've been told is the way to get it changed is to come to the city council, ask you to vote on it, request that you do it, have you push it to the planning commission, and have them get it changed. so that we can get this done and make our house a little better. That's what I'm here
Stay
for.
cool, huh?
Yeah. And one way, I've fought this pool for a year and a half, and it's going in. So I just need some help. So I don't know whether you guys ask questions or I leave it at that, but I would really appreciate the help. And not asking to change it 2 or 3. Not asking to put a great big chicken coop in. This will be a beautiful, nice little pool for our neighborhood and our family.
Okay, thank you, Mike. We'll,
Chicken coop would be easier.
From your lips
Can
to
we-
his ears.
Can we put it on the agenda?
yeah.
It's got to
Yeah,
go through the planning commission first, or
Is that how it goes? Goes through the planning commission, then comes back here?
Do you want me to float
do we
5
have a
feet to the planning
consensus
commission?
on putting
Is
that on
what
the
is
agenda?
being asked? Okay.
we do have a consensus here. We have 5 of you, 3 of you.
Planning Commission.
I'll do it one at a time, huh? We're good.
Okay.
We'll get it on there, okay?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mike, that's a consensus just to consider it, though, just so
That's
I
right.
don't want any hopes getting up or anything. It's still a long process.
Don't
No, we're
start
good. That's what I'm
tomorrow.
saying. Just be cautious. I mean, it may or may not happen, but just don't think that that's gonna, just by that action there, that it ought.
No, I understand. And I also I mean, I know there's a process, and I know it can get a little bureaucratic at times. But the other request is, if this happens, I don't want it to happen in 3 years from now. I understand it could be months as it goes, but we're planning on starting this fall and finishing in the spring. So,
I think you'd have an answer by then, long before that, so.
okay, thank you.
Okay, yeah. Okay, seeing no others, we'll move on to presentations and reports. First, we have the mayor's report. I think on behalf of the residents, and I'd like to thank everyone was involved in the Old Glory Days celebration. There was a lot of people. There were volunteers. There were staff members like yourselves, the Laughtons, with the 5K and that. We sincerely appreciate that. But there are a lot of people involved in all the different events we had, and it really went well. Everything, I had a lot of good comments and positive feedback. So we appreciate the efforts of everyone that helped with that. Have just a couple of items. On the 24th of July, Riverdale City's band, we have a band, and they're going to perform in the celebration of the bands. That'll be on the 24th. That'll be out at Barker Park in North Ogden. I believe it's at 6:30. There'll be 4 bands participating. There'll be North Ogden Band, Ogden, Clearfield, and Riverdale. So those 4 bands will perform that evening, but we'll put it on Facebook and try to get the word out. We just want to let the council know and the public that that's going to happen that night. It's free. There's no admission charge. So families, it's probably good a family event if you don't have something on the 24th. Another item, Gordman's. Gordman's on the 25th of this month, July 25th. I believe that's on a Thursday, 9 o'clock a.m. They're going to do a grand reopening. I think a lot of you know that it was at one time they looked like they might go away. Well, they've come back, and they're building a lot of new stores. I can't remember the number. I saw it on a TV commercial, but Gordman's is really nationally and worldwide where they have businesses really, really on the upswing, and they're going to do a grand reopening on that date. So we'll just make you aware of that, council. If you like to attend that, you're welcome to. So, and that's all I've got this morning for this meeting. Move on next to the city administration report. It's all in your packets from the different departments. Do you have any questions or concerns for this meeting, council? I'll turn it over to Mr. Worthen.
Thanks, Mayor. Council, before you is our
June report for the administration of the city. I'll defer the June anniversaries and employee recognition to the end. The department reports are included in your packet. The mayor mentioned the volunteers of our community that helped with our staff and the community services staff in putting on a great celebration over the 4th. That was a lot of fun. I'd like to commend Rich Taylor and his group as well, Public Works. All those departments are involved in that celebration for the community. Even though we delayed our fireworks, they were a pretty good show from what I hear. So I was there and watched them, and it was hard to breathe a little bit. There was so much gun smoke in the air, but it was a pretty cool firing off of the fireworks. So I don't know if we can reach that same level of display next year, but we'll certainly try to do so. I'd like to just thank Rich Taylor as far as the community services department in our monthly reports to you, council. The staffing authorization plan is also included in there. We're 3.25 FTE below. We've since filled the city recorder position. Recognized Shaylee with us tonight. The acting city recorder will appoint her at your next city council meeting. Formally appoint her in that position at that time. But we are down 3.25. Most of that's in the fire department. Make note of the financial reports, the finance reports that are in your packet. Excuse me. And then the utility fund report is in there. It doesn't show much change to that. I would like to note the community development report. Best Realty is opened. And I think I mentioned last time you meant that Crumble Cookies is now open as well. So Lunchbox Wax opened as well, didn't they, Mike? So things are happening there. There's some good things in the pipeline that we'll be bringing forward to you here as well in the near future. So that being said, I would like to point out the 5-year anniversaries here in Riverdale City. We do this every month. And we have a bunch from the fire department chief. They're not here, are they, today? I don't see any of them. I'll just go down through the list. Randy Koger in our community development department is our fire marshal and fire inspector, as well as our code enforcement officer. And Randy's been in public service for 29 years. Him and Sean Douglas are probably leading the way. Chief Brinkman's up there too. Brandon Peterson in our police department has 17 years of service, as does Lynn Wright in our police at 16 years of service. Jordan Cubbage in our fire department is 5, so he's one that we would recognize tonight if he were here. Michael Payne, also 5 years in our fire department. Joshua Weed, 5 years in our fire department. And then Steve Wetton in our fire department at 5 years. So those 4 firemen would be recognized tonight, but they're not with us tonight, so we'll get them later. Steve Hodges in our business administration area at 4 years, works with us. Brian Schofield on our police, 2 years. Travis Dahl in public works at 2 years. Sherry Taylor Brown over in community services with Rich Taylor at 2 years. Heidi Jepson over there in community service, 2 years. J.R. Van Dyke in our fire department, 2 years. Oh, it seems like he was just here yesterday. Max Higlio in fire, 1 year. Shane Irasodi, I hope I pronounced that right, in our fire department. Is that right? Irasodi? 1 year. And then Stephanie Fisher, one of our only and first female firefighters in the fire department, has 1 year of service. So I'd like to recognize those individuals for their service and ongoing help with what we do here in Riverdale City. That's all I have, Mayor, if there's questions.
Any questions for Mr. Worthen? Move on. Presentations to item 3. This is a discussion of a draft memorandum of understanding and cooperation between Riverdale City and Weber School District. Mr. Worthen.
Thank you, Mayor. What this is a result of a meeting we held with the superintendent of the school district. During that discussion with him, we were searching for a way where we could assist the school district and they could help us in a mutually concerted effort to locate building sites for a future replacement of Riverdale Elementary School. So it's very preliminary. This is a draft MOU that we would work together as 2 entities trying to find suitable sites that would work for potential replacement of the Riverdale Elementary School, and this is out there a ways, probably 2026. Superintendent Stevens indicated that the school would probably not be in this rebond cycle, but the bonding cycle in 2025. So this is out there a ways. But the superintendent wanted to have something with the city that we would help them, they would help us in finding potential areas where perhaps a new school could be built. It could be that they tear down the existing one and rebuild it on the current property that it's at today, which seems to be the best discussion that we entertained during this meeting with him. But anyway, I quickly came back to my office, drafted up this draft, and it is a draft. But what I'm looking for is your input, your direction, your discussion. And it doesn't have to happen tonight, this evening. If you have something that you would consider important to put in that MOU and you think of it on Friday night this coming week, send me an email. But what I'm simply trying to do is open up this topic on your radar and have it available for input for you and reading, so that we could take it perhaps to the school district at their meetings coming up here with their board. So that's where we're at. We do have a follow-up meeting with them in August as far as the redevelopment agency, and I'm sure it might be a topic of discussion at that time. So if you have something you'd like to add to it, please let me know, and then of course we'll bring it back at the most immediate city council meeting that we can get it on. So that's all I have, unless you have questions on that.
No questions. Move on then to consent items. We have one consent item this evening, and that is consideration to approve the meeting minutes from June 18th, 2019, the City Council work session, and also the City Council regular session. Do we have any changes or corrections to the minutes? Do we have a motion on the minutes, Mr. Mitchell?
Motion to approve the meeting minutes with the one change of removing the RDA minutes from this set of minutes.
Second?
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous in favor. Move on to the action items. This is action item 1. This is consideration of ordinance 911. This is amending the zoning of property in the city's land use map to change the land use designation of land located at 863 and 881 West and 4400 South from R2 to R16.
You want me to go ahead, Mayor?
Go ahead, Mr. Reagan.
Thank you. Eva Panunzio is the applicant or the petitioner in this matter. They're represented tonight, or she's represented tonight by Lori Thurgood, who is present in this meeting. As you noted, the address is 863 West and 881 West, 4400 South. Please take note of that with the the ordinance in your packet. Should you go forward with that change be 4400, not 4100. The request is for the change from R2 zoning to R16 zoning to allow for the possibility of future development of a single-family residential subdivision with the potential for a PRUD overlay future conditional use request. The neighboring properties around the site, the northeast, the majority of the west, are currently zoned R2. Properties to the southwest and south are currently zoned C3, which is regional commercial zoning designation. The request is for approximately 3.56 acres, as noted. On July 9th, 2019, the matter did come before the Planning Commission, wherein a public hearing was held. There were no members of the public that were at that meeting to provide commentary. However, prior to that meeting, I did receive two brief phone inquiries about the rezone request. The individuals who were residents that were around the property area were more concerned than anything about a multi-family type of a rezone request. Once I explained to them there was not a multi-family request, or it was single-family residential, they seemed very comfortable with what, at least in theory, was being requested with this rezone at R16 zoning. At the conclusion of the meeting with the Planning Commission, they made a favorable recommendation to City Council to approve the proposed rezone request from R2 to R16. The property is currently listed in the county records of Eva J. Panunzio Trust, and the trust has been notified of this rezone request as well. The historical use of the property has been there's a residential single-family home lot and a single-family rental home lot, and then obviously agricultural use is the remainder of the lot as you go southward between 4,400 and 4,450. The general plan use for this area is set in the master use plan is residential low density along 4,400 and mixed use transitional along 4,450. And the proposed rezone request and project concept would support that general plan. Future land use designation is found within the general plan. The application is found within the packet as well as the ordinance and all the supporting documentation. And I would defer back to the and the minutes from the planning commission meeting are found at the end of the item as well. And I would defer back to the city council for any questions they may have of me or the applicant. I would note briefly, Mr. Hugh Park is also here with Lori Thurgood to represent their interest in that property.
Okay, thank you, Michael.
Welcome.
Any questions from the council? Hey, Mr. Arnold.
I just want to put for the record that I support the R16, but I don't like in the packet how there's a bunch of the potential PRUD comments and things in that, because it's inappropriate for us to ask questions about future development within a rezone request. So it's actually, there's a lot of stuff in the packet that really should be cleaned up. So, but I was looking at the ordinance, and there's really nothing in the ordinance itself talking about the PRUD. It's the executive summary and supporting documentation and things like that. So as long as it's on the record, it's a potential of a PRUD, not a. I mean, the rezone is for R16, and the R16 setbacks and things like that are different than a PUD or. So just as long as that's on the record for future generations of whatever.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Mr. Hanson.
I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance 911 amending the zoning of property and city's land use map to change the land use designation of land located 863 and 881 west and 4400 south from R2 to R16.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second, and I think there was a note there. You did read 4400 south. It's on the agenda. Just need to be sure that's done right, because in the packet it was 40. On the initial agenda it was 4100 south. Okay, Shaylee, would you poll council on the ordinance, please?
Councilmember Ellis.
No. Nay.
Councilmember Mitchell.
Aye.
Councilmember Arnold.
Aye.
Councilmember Hanson.
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens.
Aye.
Councilor Ellis, what was your vote?
Nay.
Nay? Okay, we've got 4 in favor, 1 opposed. Motion carries. Thank you. Move on to action item 2, consideration of resolution 2019-18, authorizing execution of an agreement with Stoffers Towing for non-consent vehicle towing services within Riverdale City. Chief Brinkman.
Thank you, Mayor. This is just a request to extend our contract with Stoffers Towing for all of our non-consent tows. Originally, the City Council chose Stoffers as our provider, and this just allows for a 2-year extension of that contract. They have been an excellent provider for us, excellent service, very, very little complaint, which is pretty unheard of in this type of business. So we've enjoyed all the service that they've given to us. They're very timely in their response. They do a good job on scenes, and they've always been very honest in the way they deal with our citizens and the things that we deal with. So if you have any questions on that, I can try and answer those.
Mr. Arnold.
I'd move to approve Resolution 2019-18 authorizing execution of an agreement with Stouffer's Towing for non-consent vehicle towing services within Riverdale City.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Is there any discussion on the motion, Mr. Mitchell?
Do we need to specify that that's a 2-year agreement or anything, or, let's see. It's just a 2-year extension, or?
I'd just say the motion agrees with that.
Yeah. I mean, the original contract covered that, and so all we're doing is it's an automatic 2-year. We can't go any more than that anyway, so.
Okay, I just wasn't sure if it needed to be in the motion or not, that it's a 2-year
I think he's
extension.
making a
It's
great
not,
point.
it's not gonna hurt to put it in there. I mean,
Okay.
go ahead and state it if you want.
It's out of control.
Hey, we're trying to protect things here, okay?
Sometime down the line,
So,
you never know.
You're gonna throw water bottles.
Shaylee, would you poll the council on the resolution, please?
Councilmember Arnold.
Aye.
Councilmember Hanson.
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens.
Aye.
Councilmember Ellis.
Aye.
Councilmember Mitchell.
Aye.
It's unanimous in favor, thank you. Move on to action item 3, consideration of resolution 2019-19. This is a proposed change to the Riverdale City Consolidated Fee Schedule. Mr. Worthen.
Thank you, Mayor. Council, before you tonight is some changes to the fee schedule. We do this on occasion when we have fees that are not in line with our costs or other inflationary pressures or changes in state code. And there's a myriad of those on the proposal before you tonight. This is in section 112.1. We have changes to the state code for grandma records access management fees, which we've included in this change and in your packet today. We're also proposing a change to increase the general business license cost from $55 to $75 to account for inflationary pressures and costs related to managing, issuing, and inspecting businesses here within Riverdale City. That cost is prorated monthly. For example, if a business comes in end of the month, September, October, November, we'd prorate that fee accordingly. Special event permit costs, recommending a change from $100 to $125 to cover staff review costs of that event. They seem to be more time consumptive relative to staff review of those than we initially planned. We're also proposing mobile home park business license fees increase from $5 per space to $7.50 per space, which would be in addition to the basic business licensure fee. In section 112-5, in order to keep costs consistent that we have throughout the state of Utah, we're proposing that our building valuation data be changed and that we adopt the ICC building valuation data that governs the building permit expenses within the building department. I included an example for you. Our current building valuation data of $77 per square foot in 2005 was the ICC recommended $95 per square foot in 2005, which is approximately 14 years ago. Today, in the year 2019, the ICC building valuation is around $122.46 per square foot when you build a home, and that's pretty much industry average in the state of Utah. Most building that you do in single family per square foot, and that's excluding the land cost, would be around $120 to $125 per square foot, depending on what you put into the home. The ICC building valuation obviously is what would be noted on our fee schedule as the determining fee calculation. It's pretty much in line with the existing communities that surround us. But basically, when a permit application comes in, the building department is part of our general fund. What we're, as a staff, recommending is that permit applicant pay for the costs, basically, of the permit review all the way through the inspection and the certificate of occupancy. And that covers the building inspection, the building official's costs, everything from the tires on his truck to the fuel that he puts in it to his benefits and his pay, all the way through the process that helps pay for that impact upon the city. And the reason that the building official is making those inspections and working with the builder on that home. Lastly, in section 12-5, we're also recommending an increase to the conditional use permit fee from 50 to 75 to help cover the inflationary cost to review and approve and inspect that conditional use on the land. In 12-6, this was part of our city budget that we approved in our enterprise fund. This was to help cover the costs transferred by the state of Utah to the cities for reporting of the transfer station, but not only that, but the landfills on where we dispose of our trash that is collected in the city. We also have a 10-cent increase from the Weber transfer station that's included that covers those two costs. So the first garbage can is increasing from $10.42 to $10.52, and then the second garbage can equally from $5.32 to $5.42. And then lastly, in accordance with the Utah Department of Health and the Bureau of Emergency Medical Services and Preparedness, we have an annual increase. This comes out pretty much every year. These are updated by the Department of Emergency Medical Services, and this is an attachment B to the fee schedule, and this covers the mileage and base rate fees for ambulance rides if you by chance happen to take one. I'm assuming that's most of that what you have in there, Chief Shawley. So that is an annual cost increase that we put in our fee schedule so that our ambulance fees are up to date. Those are the changes that are recommended before you tonight. If you have questions, Council.
Mr. Mitchell.
As I was looking around at some of the surrounding cities, one of the ones I looked at looked like the fee schedule for building permits kind of went down a little bit as the houses became larger or had a larger square footage in them. And I know most of the developments that we've been approving lately are for very small homes. And in fact, we've had some Riverdale residents complain that the new homes that are going in, they've even asked the developers if they could buy 2 lots or if they could do something to accommodate their growing families and stay within Riverdale. And so I was just wondering if there's anything we can do to our fee schedule to kind of encourage or reward builders for maybe building a slightly larger home rather than encouraging them to build as many small homes as they can. I don't know if there's a way to kind of taper that as it gets larger. I don't know. That was just something I ran across. I think it was South Ogden that looks that way. So
Some cities have impact fees, right?
Yeah, some cities do have impact fees, Mayor. We currently don't. He's correct in that South Ogden, their set rate, their base rate, for example, in that particular community, a home from $100,000 to $500,000, they take a $992 for the first $100,000 of value, and then $5.60 for each $1,000 or fraction thereof, up to and including $500,000. So if you run through that calculation, for example, on a $400,000 home, you're going to be anywhere around $3,800, and then you throw in your percentage of the permit fee on top of that. So it's pretty close to where we would be using the ICC, but Councilmember Mitchell is correct. As that goes up, the square footage cost goes down, but the base rate goes. So for example, as I mentioned, $100,000 to $500,000 valued home, the base fee is $992 and some change. If your home is $500,000 to $1 million, that base rate then jumps from $992 to $3,232, but the square footage value drops by approximately 80 cents. It goes from $5.60 to $4.75. So what is that? About 90 cents roughly that it drops per square foot, but your base rate increases. A house that's over $1 million, the base rate is $5,607 and some change, but your square footage value drops down from $4.75 to $3.65. So it kind of, I see where you're going, Councilor Mitchell, that there is some incentive perhaps if you look at that. What we're looking at is the square footage value and charge the square footage value because the home needs the same number of inspections, whether it's 1,600 feet or 3,000 square feet. You may have a little bit more components in a bigger home, but you're still there the number of inspections per the given time that you're inspecting the various components of the construction.
My thought was it probably doesn't take twice as long to inspect a 3,200 square foot home as it does a 1,600 because they both have one gas line, one water line, and I mean, just walking the floor. So it was just something I kind of thought about. I don't know if it's something we want to look at in the future, but I know the trend seems to be a lot of small homes going in Riverdale, and there are people that would like to see some other homes going in Riverdale, that would like to stick around, and it's kind of limiting their options. We've had some families that have moved away that wanted to stay, but there's nothing available. So.
Mr. Arnold?
I'd move to approve Resolution 2019-19 as stated within the packet.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion on the motion? Shaylee, would you poll the council on the resolution, please?
Councilmember Hanson?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Aye.
Councilmember Ellis?
Aye.
Councilmember Mitchell?
Nay.
T-shirt. We say aye.
Aye.
Okay, it's 4 in favor, 1 opposed, the motion carries. Thank you. Move on to discretionary items for city council meeting. Are there any discretionary items for this evening, Mr. Arnold?
A couple. How do we approach? So, I know everybody's going to love hearing about this, but Coleman Farms, the way that's terraced, we've put in a rock wall, and then they have another 6 to 8 feet of dirt above that, and it doesn't look like they're going to put any more rock in there. I don't even know if they can. And so the first rainstorm, somebody watering their lawn, the dirt is going to come to the people below, and we're going to hear about that. And it's going to be a mess, terraced down. Do we know if we're looking at any of that? So we are, Mike's.
There are some problems, I know. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, we actually put the issuance of any more building permits on hold until they address those rock walls.
Okay.
So
Okay.
we met with them, when was it? A week ago yesterday or today? We've told them we'll inspect what they have to this point, but there's no issuance of any additional permits until that's addressed.
'Cause I haven't measured anything, and I want to, but it looks like the rock wall is part of the backyard of the. It is.
Yeah,
So
it's
I mean, if
divided
you're
half.
talking a 30-foot setback, and then you have maybe a 4-foot block wall or whatever they're putting in there, those. I mean, you're talking 25 feet, and then you have 6 feet of sand that's above them. They're going to be in here left and right by the time they live there. And I know there's already a lawsuit filed with the condo sheds or whatever to the north because of the flooding issues that they've caused over there. So, I mean, there's just, telltale of that. So, if we're watching it, that's great.
We are. We addressed not only the north wall where the Riverdale business condos are, we addressed the wall in the middle of the project and then the one against Ritter. And
They're working on Ritter. So, and by the way, kudos on that. Well, I hate that project. Ritter is fantastic. The stamped concrete and the parking strip and all that kind of bravo.
looks good.
Yeah, looks really good.
Motion to open
Did a
Ritter.
good job.
So anyway, and then I think it's appropriate to acknowledge Jessica Fiveash as a candidate for city council who snuck in the back door.
Are they not grading according to the plan? Because the engineer didn't indicate any kind of issue like this when we approved this, according to the.
No, they're grading according to what they did. The one that they're not grading that we had concerns was the north wall.
Oh.
But the wall that separates what Councilmember Arnold is talking about is there in the middle of the project that separates the two. The property line's in the middle of the slope. So the lower property owner would have the configured engineered retaining wall, and then the upper one would have his portion of that property above the upper or below the upper wall. So it's a shared boundary. What we're concerned about is how to control the soils that are up there. If there's plantings, sod, natural vegetation, whatever they get at that point. The north wall, we had some concerns with how they backfilled it and what was behind that wall to hold the soils behind that wall, as well as on Ritter. So they're reconfiguring the design of that to hold that material better.
It's probably 10, 15 feet, it looks like, from the backyard of the lower level to the backyard of the upper level. And it's, at my house, we had about a 3-foot drop, and I dug out my backyard halfway, so my backyard wouldn't go into my neighbor's backyard, and it was a little 3-foot wall. This is a mountain behind them, so I mean it's going to be and people are like, hey, that's my house, this is going to be great, and they're going to get in and start complaining the moment they get in there. And so we need to do something if we can, because we've already approved about half of them.
Well, the retaining walls just don't look adequate for the amount of dirt they're
Yeah.
putting above and behind them. I've looked at that too and wonder what are they
It's like
gonna,
half and half.
what are they
half
gonna
dirt
do
mix.
next to fix that?
We're gonna have another hill slide on that side, and
Yeah.
people are gonna come chirping in here and saying, hey, we approved it, and it won't be 1955, it's
thing.
gonna be 2019, and
Well, they are AEGS, Geotechnical Services Engineering is involved in the approval process, so I don't want to put out that they're not adequate, but they are adequate. What concerns us is the slope that's above the lower wall versus the upper wall and how to retain that soil.
I mean, I figured you knew about it, and if we're addressing it, that's great, but if we can keep an eye on that, even if we put it on the agenda for, just like we did with the landslide, where we just have an update, automatic update, because those houses are going in fast and furious, and we're gonna have, people are really happy moving into their home until they go out the back for their barbecue, and their barbecue is full of sand.
That's why we spoke to them.
Okay. That's all I have.
Any other discretionary? I'll just mention one thing. I came across this last week, and I wasn't aware that it happened. In the past years, for quite a few years, the Second District Juvenile Court is, we've had a contract with them to clean up the graffiti in Riverdale. And had a resident ask about, she'd been really good to report graffiti. In fact, she was even calling it in, and she asked me, she said the number she had wasn't good anymore to call the individual that was taking care of the cleanup. So I checked with Chief Brinkman, and I was surprised to find out that where Riverdale City is now doing their graffiti cleanup. So Sean Douglas is the one that's doing it. I don't remember it. I may have missed it, but I don't remember anything being said about that.
Didn't we just approve the
It seemed like not too
slow
long
roller
ago.
a year ago? Wow.
Yeah, but there was, I guess there was a thing with costs and maybe how they're doing the job, but Riverdale City Public Works is now cleaning up the graffiti, so if you see things or people have concerns, that's who to go to, is to Sean, so thought you'd like to know that. I wasn't aware of it, so.
Better with our color palette. That light blue stuff.
Only city property though.
Yeah. So if
Private property, not state property.
you probably just have to, I'd say contact Sean, then he can probably find the rightful owner and pass that on. I don't know how else you'd do it. We don't know a lot of that, so. Okay, any other discretionary? Have a motion to,
Can I ask a question, just for clarification of your comments on our item? That's about the PRUD, or is that not appropriate right now?
you can ask the question. Go ahead, Roger.
I just wanted clarification of your comments on the PR, on our, where you talked about the rezone that we requested, the PRUD. Explain that to me, what your comments were.
So in the packet, it says that there's a rezone to R16
Yes.
with a potential PRUD.
Yes.
The rezone request before us right now shouldn't say anything about a PRUD because there's no such thing as a R16 with a PRUD. So what we should have been looking at tonight was just a rezone request.
Okay.
And then when you come with the
Subdivision.
plot map, then that's when you request the PRUD. So there was things in the packet that we really shouldn't have been asking about, but it was in the packet, and so we had a conversation upstairs in the pre-meeting that if it's in the packet, we should be able to ask about it. So it just needed to be cleaned up. It should have been cleaned up with, you're just asking for an R16.
Yes.
And that's it. Just,
But we are planning on putting a PRUD on there, and so and that's what we wanted to disclose as we.
yeah, that's just later.
Okay, that's just
No,
later.
it's,
Just kind of a clarification thing. There was a concern that where that was included in the packet, that it might be construed as we were approving that, and that wasn't approved tonight, only the rezoned R16.
I get that, but we also wanted to be forthcoming and saying, look, this is what we are doing,
Yeah.
our plans, and I understand that we weren't asking for PRUD tonight, so, but we did want to share with you what our future plans were.
Yeah, and that's fine. We appreciate you
Okay.
trying to
Thank
do
you. I didn't
that.
mean
So
to be out
it caused a
Breaking-
little bit of confusion.
radical
was all.
breaking all the rules.
Okay, I know you have your process, and I should have done this during open meeting time, but I didn't realize I didn't have a chance to stand up during your deliberations, so thank you.
Okay.
People wearing t-shirts.
Okay, motion to adjourn this meeting. We'll move into our RDA meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
This meeting's adjourned.
How was Mexico?
Excellent.
Which night is
Thank you.
have their activity night?
Bring tacos back or anything for us?
Fireworks.
Ours is Wednesday.
So it's Tuesday or Thursday. Huh?
Okay, you need to stay for the
Wednesday night is.
the RD. Yeah,
It's
You
less
go
bo-
see
it's
that
less boring.
Stacey Anderson,
yeah.
she's,
We rocking this one.
My daughter's birthday.
Oh, yeah.
Happy birthday.
But I wanted to come. How long do they normally last?
she did a good job.
If I have my say, like another 6 minutes.
I know.
Unless it's swim night.
No, not an
No,
hour,
really.
no. Less than 15.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. She's 14 and I only have a little bit of time left.
Uh-oh.
It's
true.
Turns out to be a good mom,
That's true.
but no, so is there, that's the development? Okay.
It's just as exciting as the first one. I mean, it's like pins and needles.
Even more exciting than the first one, so. Okay, move on. Like to welcome you this evening to our Riverdale City RDA Board meeting on Tuesday, July 16th, 2019. Appreciate you being here. For the record, all RDA board members are present, as are members of the city staff, and move on to our public comment period. This is a period of time when you can come forward to the microphone regarding any concerns or ideas that you might have. You're welcome to bring them forth to the RDA board. And we would ask, keep your time to about 3 minutes if you would for your comments. It's now open for public comment. Seeing none, we'll move on to presentations and reports. First, we have 2018 report of developer payments. Mr. Worthen.
Thank you, Mayor. To the board tonight, we're reporting our annual payments for 2018. These are our attached summary of payments, which is included within your information that we sent to you in your packets. This is the reimbursement payments to developers in RDA and project area improvement areas within the city. Of course, we have one remaining that is on our report this night. This was to the Boyd company over in the 550 West development area. The payment was $196,873. Total budget amount was $210,000, so we were under our budget by approximately $13,127. This is an annual agreement to reimburse these development developers. This is the increased property tax revenue that we conveyed to them for infrastructure and road improvements within that development. I believe we're in 2011, so we have approximately 3-4 more years to go. Is that correct, Mike? I'd like to thank Mike Agate for putting that together. That's a lot of work to compile that payment annually to the developers, and this is one that we have finalized and sent to them. That's in our report. Any questions from the board on that?
Okay. Move on to item 2, report of the taxing entity committee. Mr. Worthen.
The taxing entity committee, as you know, met in the third week of May. We had some updates for you relative to that meeting. One of them was the taxing entity committee wanted to ascertain whether or not our estimates to relocate the power line or the transmission power lines up in the West Bench RDA. There's 238 kV lines up there. We did meet on site with Rocky Mountain Power to confirm their estimates. They did send to us, unfortunately, a little bit late. We weren't able to present this data to the school district, but I did send it to them later on in an email on the very day that we did meet with them. This could be a combination of overhead or burial of these lines. The maximum budget that's been set aside in the project plan area is approximately $9 million to relocate those lines. Going overhead at 2,700 feet, the project cost would be around $1.9 million going overhead to relocate. This would be to the east and to the north of the RDA project areas. That would be on the Knutson and Gibby property, and then coming up around where Councilor Ellis lives up through that area up towards the substation. That would be overhead. We also bid another way to come around the front and go that way around and parallel basically Cozydale 1500 West. That was a little bit less money at 1.5 million. So that could be a combination also of burial or overhead. Depends on what the developer would need or how he would entertain that. So bottom line is just the budgeted amount would clearly cover what we have. So going underground is a little bit more than those costs, but overhead, obviously we're within the budgeted amount within the project plan area. That being said, we did meet with the school district and they were very favorable to the plan that we'd put together. We're asking for, and this kind of ties in later on to the consent agenda, and I can repeat this if we need to, additional time in the West Bench RDA to trigger the tax increment. Tax increment has to be triggered by 2020. In the current plan, we're requesting at least 5 years. We could accept 3, but we want to go big for 5 and see what we can get out of it.
But we're only going to need 1.
Exactly. That's how we're looking at it right now. But that extends the increment out further, that we can collect a little bit more increment. So that being said, we do have a planning meeting at the end of this month, and then we meet back with the school board actually on their meeting. First meeting, I think that was the 7th, if I'm correct, Mike. So we're going to meet with them and request that they formally approve that as far as perhaps what I'm doing with you tonight on the consent agenda.
Do you have any questions, Mr. Ellis?
On that $9 million, wasn't that earmarked specifically for the power lines? And if
Utilities,
we get
wasn't it?
the utilities, then we can do other developments up there for the infrastructure, right?
That's the top priority, but then other utility and infrastructure needs within the area, the monies can be utilized for per the plan.
That's great. So we take care of the power lines first,
You
and
got
then
it.
whatever
And then
left
there's
over.
additional.
Line of the power lines, depending on which way they go, is that done in conjunction with
Their site
the
plan.
developer? Okay, yeah, so it wouldn't be something that we would do and deter?
No.
Okay, all right.
It's really up to them. We looked at it both ways, going around to the east, I guess paralleling I-84 and then up and around the Credit Union Operations Center. That way it could be a little bit more costly to go underground that way because there's a lot more turns and bends. You could go underground parallel Riverdale Road and then hang a right, if you will, and go up Cozydale. There's a number of options there. It could be a combination of aerial and underground, depending on what the developer would need to fit his site development plans. So
There's been some developers actually been okay with the power lines. So not at the current time, but Any other questions on that? Okay, move on to the consent item. Consideration to approve the meeting minutes from the June 18th, 2019 RDA meeting. Do we have any changes or corrections to those minutes? Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve the consent items?
We need to go through consent item number 2.
Different.
Mine doesn't have
RDA board
that. Mine
consent.
doesn't have a consent item too.
Oh, man.
Uh-oh.
Oh,
Shattering the rule
discrepancies.
book tonight.
Um,
What's going on here?
what's the second one?
You're late.
Tech
too.
agenda.
Why don't you read it?
For the extension.
Come on, Bart.
That's what they put out for the public.
You can't put that yesterday. You gotta be on the ball.
This is a tech agenda item, Mayor. I don't know where that agenda came
We're
from.
not always
It
this
was on the
sloppy.
table at the beginning of the meeting.
No, I brought it in.
This is all on you.
Yep.
You get this together. What do you?
I'm glad she's not permanent yet. So.
Okay, consent item number 2, receive RDA board consent on the tech agenda item for the upcoming committee meeting and vote.
Mayor, if I may, this before you tonight is that extension of 5 years, that you are okay with that. That's why it's on the consent agenda. Before we place our vote, I wanted to make sure the board was fine with that. That's all that is.
You okay there? Okay. Okay, with that, do we have a motion on the consent items?
So moved.
Okay,
What's so moved?
Moved.
approved.
Or to deny him?
He said to approve the
I had said
consent
to
items.
approve the first time, but I didn't after we added the
Move
second
to
one.
approve consent items.
Second, to approve the consent items.
Okay, any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous in favor. Move on to discretionary business. Is there any discretionary items for this meeting? Seeing none yet.
Move to adjourn.
Okay,
Second.
have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Thank you for being here, Jessica.
Almost
Welcome.
6 minutes.
Hey, Bishop did a good job Sunday. Sunday school presidency.
Oh, that's right.
Why steak thing.
Growing pains.
No big deal. I just wondered why she.
Yeah. Who's your bishop? Melvin Wardle.
Oh, Phil, okay.
Yeah.
He's a great guy.
He's texting me right now. Are you coming to visit? So.
You better get out of here.
Yep.
Well,
Brent, my house isn't going to be big enough for you if that thing goes through. It'll be like a shed for you.
I know. So where am I going to live in Riverdale?
Nowhere. You can't get a building
You know
permit.
what? You get that patio home. It's on
can't
one level,
afford-
no
can't
stairs.
Yeah.
What a deal.
Yeah, nobody will build you a house in Riverdale because it's all R16.
I know.
And you didn't want it.
Well, yeah, I